The silver sphere appeared in Earth's orbit one Tuesday morning. It came from nowhere. No warning, no signal, no spacecraft bringing it. One moment empty space, the next moment, there it was. On Earth, alarms rang in every military base. Computer screens flashed warnings. Phones rang in government offices around the world. "Something just appeared above us," said the nervous young officer at Korean Space Command. Director Kim rushed to the control room, his coffee forgotten. The large screen showed the sphere, perfectly round, silver, and about the size of a small moon. It hung in space, doing nothing. "Is it moving?" Director Kim asked. "No, sir, just sitting there." For 3 days, the world held its breath. Religious leaders called it a sign. Military leaders called it a threat. Scientists called it impossible. Then it spoke. Director Kim was working late when all screens in the command center suddenly showed the same image. The sphere, glowing slightly. "I am Sentinel," it said in perfect Korean. Later, they would learn it spoke to everyone in their own language at exactly the same time. "I have come to help." The room went silent. Director Kim adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. "Help with what?" "Your extinction, Director Kim." Kim felt cold. "You're here to destroy us." "No, to prevent your destruction. The Vrak Collective approaches Earth. I was created to stop them." Nobody believed Sentinel at first. People rarely believe warnings of danger until they see it with their own eyes. "Show us proof," Kim demanded. The screens filled with star maps and strange symbols. "These are the paths the Vrak have taken. 17 civilizations have fallen in the last 1,000 years. Your world is next." The images showed planets, once green and blue like Earth, turned to gray, lifeless rocks. "My creators were the last victims," Sentinel continued. "They used their final energy to create me, to find a species worthy of saving." World leaders argued for days. Some wanted to attack the sphere. Others wanted to ignore it. But the evidence was too strong to dismiss. "We have 6 months before they arrive," Sentinel told them. "We must prepare." Director Kim's daughter, Jia, had just finished her doctorate in physics when her father called. "The world needs you," he said simply. Now Dr. Kim Jia stood in a lab that hadn't existed 3 months ago, working with technology nobody understood. Sentinel provided designs for weapons that used science humanity hadn't yet discovered. "The quantum alignment is wrong," she muttered, studying the glowing blueprint floating in the air. "You're learning quickly," Sentinel's voice came from speakers around the lab. "Most species take years to grasp these concepts. You've done it in weeks." Jia didn't look up from her work. "We don't have years." Across the huge underground base, Colonel Park watched new recruits training. Soldiers from countries that had been enemies just months ago now worked side by side. The threat of the Vrak had done what nothing else could: unite humanity. "Faster," Park shouted as a team struggled with a new weapon system. "The Vrak won't give you time to check the manual." The soldiers moved faster. Everyone worked faster these days. The countdown clock in every room showed how little time remained. One day, a message came from the space station near Jupiter. They had spotted something. The images showed ships, if you could call them ships. They looked more like giant insects made of metal and flesh combined. They moved in perfect formation, scanning everything. "Vrak scouts," Sentinel confirmed. "They're mapping your solar system." That night, Jia couldn't sleep. She went to the observation deck where they kept a direct line to Sentinel. "Tell me about them," she asked. "What do they want?" "Resources, new genetic material. Slaves if a species is useful. The Vrak consume everything they touch." "And your creators? What were they like?" The sphere seemed to dim slightly. "They were poets and dreamers. They believed in peace until the end. They weren't prepared to fight. But you think we are? I've watched humanity for decades before revealing myself. You fight, sometimes too much, sometimes for wrong reasons, but you understand conflict. My creators hoped I would find a species with both the heart to deserve saving and the strength to survive. Jia looked at the stars. And you think that's us? I hope it is. Otherwise, we've already lost. As the months passed, Earth changed. New weapons and shields appeared on buildings and ships. People learned to use technology they didn't fully understand. And always, the silver sphere watched from above. One morning, all the screens in the base turned red. Sentinel's voice came through clearer than ever. They're here. The main VRAC fleet has entered your solar system. Colonel Park gathered his officers. This is what we trained for. Every drill, every simulation, it was for today. Around the world, people moved to underground shelters. Fighter pilots climbed into ships enhanced with Sentinel's technology. Weapon stations powered up. Director Kim found his daughter in her lab, making final adjustments to the main defense system. Will it work? He asked. It has to, she answered. Above Earth, the silver sphere began to glow brighter. For months it had shared knowledge. Now it would share something more, its power. As the first VRAC ships appeared in Earth's sky, massive twisted shapes that blocked the sun, Sentinel's voice reached everyone one last time. Stand ready, humanity. Your war begins now. The war room buzzed with activity as Dr. Kim Jia studied the glowing blue schematics floating in the air before her. 6 months had passed since Sentinel's arrival, and Earth had transformed. What once seemed like science fiction was now reality. The quantum alignment is still off, Jia muttered, reaching through the hologram to adjust a series of small, pulsing nodes. Her fingers moved with precision, born from countless sleepless nights. A soft chime announced Sentinel's presence in the lab systems. Your understanding exceeds my expectations, Dr. Kim. Most species require generations to grasp these concepts. Jia pushed a strand of hair from her face, not bothering to look up. We don't have generations. We barely have months. The weapon they were developing, named Thunderstrike by some optimistic general, could theoretically disrupt the biomechanical systems of the VRAC ships. Theoretically, they hadn't actually tested it against real VRAC technology yet. Your father requests an update, Sentinel said. Tell him we're at 83% functionality. I need another week. The VRAC scouts near Jupiter suggest we may not have a week. Jia finally looked up from her work. The dark circles under her eyes made her look older than her 32 years. Then we'll have to work faster. Outside her lab, the massive underground complex hummed with activity. What had once been a small research facility was now the heart of Earth's defense network. Similar bases had sprung up across the planet. In Korea, America, Russia, Brazil, South Africa. Old enemies working together under the shadow of extinction. 3 levels below, Colonel Park watched as soldiers ran through combat drills. The training room was enormous, with movable walls and holographic projectors creating different battle scenarios. Today, they simulated urban combat against VRAC ground forces. Faster, Park shouted as a team fumbled with their weapon systems. The VRAC won't wait while you check your settings. The soldiers, a mix of Korean, Japanese, and Chinese troops, reset their positions. Their armor gleamed under the lights, each suit enhanced with technology that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Sentinel had provided the designs, but human hands had built them. Park's assistant approached with a tablet. New data from the Jupiter outpost, sir. The colonel's face hardened as he studied the images. The VRAC scout ships hung in Jupiter's orbit like twisted insects, part machine, part living tissue. Their surfaces rippled in ways that made human eyes uncomfortable. How many? Park asked. 7 ships detected. They appear to be scanning the moons. And our observation post. Hidden so far. The stealth technology is working. Park nodded. Make sure Dr. Kim sees these immediately. In the cafeteria, soldiers and scientists ate together, conversations hushed but urgent. Private Sun Min sat with his squad, picking at food he barely tasted. My sister says people are building bunkers in Seoul, he said. Civilians know something's coming. Sergeant Han nodded. My parents think I'm on a special training mission. They don't know I'm. He gestured around them. Here. Better they don't know, said Corporal Yoon. Less to worry about. The truth was, only a small percentage of Earth's population knew the full extent of the danger. Governments had agreed that panic would only make things worse, so the world continued as normal on the surface, while beneath, they prepared for war. In her private quarters, Jia reviewed the new images from Jupiter. The Vrak ships moved with unnatural precision, their formations perfect despite the gas giant's complex gravitational fields. Sentinel, she called out. The air shimmered as a small projection of the sphere appeared on her desk. Yes, Dr. Kim. These scanning patterns, they're methodical. Are they looking for something specific? They are cataloging resources and threats. Standard Vrak procedure before a full invasion. Jia zoomed in on one image. This ship's different from the others. Good observation. That is a command vessel. It coordinates the scouts. Jia leaned back, an idea forming. If we could disrupt that ship, it would temporarily blind their operation, Sentinel confirmed. However, reaching Jupiter with your current propulsion technology would take. We're not using our current technology, Jia interrupted, standing up. We're using yours. 12 hours later, Director Kim stared in disbelief at his daughter's proposal. A strike mission. To Jupiter? Jia. That's possible, she insisted. Sentinel's drive technology can get a small team there in 3 days. And who would pilot such a mission? We've barely tested these systems in Earth orbit. Colonel Park stepped forward. I have 5 pilots who've completed the simulator training. Director Kim looked between them, then at the holographic display showing the Vrak ships. Even if you reach them, these are just scouts. The main fleet will still come. Yes, Sentinel's voice filled the room. But destroying their scouts will delay them. It will also provide valuable combat data. The director removed his glasses, cleaning them slowly as he thought. How many ships? 2, Park answered. Small, fast, equipped with the prototype disruptors. And if they fail? No one answered immediately. Finally, Jia spoke. Then we learned from that too. 3 days later, Jia stood in the launch bay as the pilots prepared for departure. The ships, sleek black craft unlike anything Earth had built before, hummed with energy. Captain Kang, the lead pilot, stopped beside her. Any last advice, Doctor? Jia handed him a small device. If the primary systems fail, use this. It's something I've been working on separately. Does Sentinel know about this? She smiled slightly. Not everything needs to be shared. As the ships launched into the night sky, accelerating at speeds that would have killed unprotected humans, Jia watched the tracking screens. Within minutes, they'd vanished from Earth's conventional radar. Will they succeed? Director Kim asked, standing beside his daughter. I don't know, she answered honestly. But for the first time since this began, we're not just reacting. We're fighting back. Above Earth, Sentinel glowed brighter as it channeled energy to maintain communication with the strike force. The sphere had come to help humanity survive, but what it hadn't revealed was how those who fought the Vrak rarely survived their first encounter. The mission to Jupiter would be humanity's first test in a war that would either end their existence or prove them worthy of the stars. The main Vrak attack came on a Tuesday morning. It started just after dawn in Seoul. Ji-hoon was walking to work when the sky turned dark. He looked up and saw them. Huge ships blocking the sun. They looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh combined. All across Earth, the same scene played out. New York, London, Beijing, Cairo, Sydney. The Vrak had arrived. In the underground command center, Colonel Park watched as red dots appeared on the world map. Each dot was a Vrak ship. There were hundreds. All defense units activate now, he ordered, his voice calm despite the fear in his chest. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Across the room, communications officers relayed his commands to military bases around the world. Screens showed chaos in the cities as people ran for shelter. "Colonel, they're targeting our defense installations first," reported a young officer, just as Sentinel predicted. Park nodded. That was both good and bad news. Good because civilians weren't the primary targets. Bad because if Earth's defenses fell, everyone would die anyway. "All units, engage as planned." Park spoke into the global command channel. "Trust your training." In orbit, Sentinel glowed brighter than ever before. The silver sphere had positioned itself to link Earth's defense networks. Information flowed through it faster than any human computer could process. "Seoul Defense Grid activated," reported Major Lee from her position in the city's control tower. "Shields at full power." The shields, based on Sentinel's technology, created a blue dome over the city. Vrak ships fired strange purple beams that hit the shield and spread like lightning. "Shield holding at 80%, Lee announced. Similar reports came in from other cities. Most shields were working, but not all. "Shanghai shield failure," someone shouted. "They've broken through." Park watched in horror as feed from Shanghai showed Vrak ships descending into the city. Buildings collapsed. Strange ground units poured from the ships, things that moved like spiders but were the size of tanks. "Can we redirect support?" Park asked. An officer shook his head. "Everyone is engaged, sir. There's nothing to send." Millions died in Shanghai that first hour. Then Sao Paulo fell. Then Cairo. Dr. Kim Jo worked frantically in her lab, analyzing data from the battles. "They're adapting to our defenses," she said, speaking to both Colonel Park and Sentinel through a video link. "Each attack is slightly different than the last." Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. She hadn't rested in days, running on coffee and determination. As expected, Sentinel's calm voice replied, "But so are we." Jiz's screens showed the pattern of Vrak attacks changing, but they also showed something else. Sentinel was changing too. The sphere's energy signature was shifting, becoming more complex. "Sentinel, what are you doing?" she asked. "Evolving. Adapting. Like your immune system fights disease." Above Seoul, the shield wavered as 3 large Vrak ships concentrated their fire on one section. "We can't hold them much longer," Major Lee reported, her voice tense but professional. "Shield at 30% and falling." In the command center, Colonel Park made a decision. "I'm taking the new squadrons out. We need to break their formation." His officers looked concerned. "Sir, those ships have only been tested 3 times. Then this will be test 4. Park removed his command jacket and headed for the elevator. "Major Kang, you have command here." 20 minutes later, Park sat in the cockpit of a sleek black fighter. It looked nothing like traditional aircraft. Its controls responded to thought as much as touch. Around him, 29 other pilots prepared for launch. "Thunderstrike Squadron, this is Colonel Park. Our mission is to break the Vrak formation above Seoul and draw them away from the shield." The launch tubes opened, and the fighters shot into the sky like bullets. They moved faster than any normal plane could fly, climbing from ground to cloud in seconds. Park saw the Vrak ships clearly now, massive dark shapes with pulsing lights. Their surfaces seemed to ripple and change as he watched. "Attack pattern Delta," he ordered. "Focus on the lid ship." The human fighters moved in perfect formation, their weapons charging. These weren't normal guns or missiles. Sentinel had called them phase disruptors, weapons that attack the connection between the biological and mechanical parts of Vrak technology. "Fire on my mark," Park said, lining up his target. 3, 2, 1, mark. 30 beams of blue light struck the lead Vrak ship. At first, nothing happened. Then the ship's surface began to bubble and tear. Parts of it seemed to fight against other parts. The ship listed to one side, its weapons going silent. "It's working," someone shouted over the radio. "Second wave, hit the next target," Park ordered. The Vrak responded quickly. Smaller ships peeled away from the city and moved to intercept the human squadron. Their weapons fired strange projectiles that seemed to track the fighters like living things. Evasive maneuvers, Park barked. 3 human fighters exploded. Another took damage but stayed airborne. The rest continued their attack run. For 20 minutes, the battle raged above Seoul. The human ships were faster and more agile. The Vrak ships were tougher and had more firepower. But the phase disruptors gave the humans an edge the Vrak hadn't expected. One by one, the huge Vrak ships began to retreat. First one, then 3, then all of them, pulling back high into the atmosphere. "They're running," a pilot cheered. "Not running," Park corrected. "Regrouping. Return to base while we have the chance." In her lab, Ja watched the battle data with growing excitement. But something else caught her attention. Sentinel's energy readings were fluctuating wildly. "Sentinel, what's happening to you?" she asked. "I am integrating." "Integrating what?" "Earth materials, human data patterns. I am becoming more." Gia zoomed in on the readings. Sentinel wasn't just guiding humanity's defenses. It was changing itself, incorporating elements from Earth into its structure. "Why?" she asked. "To better defend you. My original programming was insufficient for this conflict." Gia realized the truth then. Sentinel wasn't just a weapon or a shield. It was alive in its own way, and it was evolving alongside humanity. "Will it be enough?" she asked. "Unknown," Sentinel replied. "But for the first time in my existence, I calculate a non-zero probability of victory." On screens around the world, people watched as the Vrak ships retreated. It wasn't a final victory, not even close, but it was the first time the invaders had been forced back. For the first time since the war began, humanity dared to hope. The war changed everyone. For Dr. Kim Ja, the change was in her eyes. They had grown sharper, more focused after long nights studying data that few humans could understand. 1 month into the war with the Vrak, and she had barely left her underground lab. The victory over Seoul had given Earth a moment to breathe. The Vrak had pulled back, regrouping somewhere beyond the moon. Everyone knew they would return stronger. Gia sat alone in her lab at 3 a.m., the only light coming from her screens. She was tracking subtle changes in Sentinel's energy patterns. "These readings don't make sense," she muttered, rubbing her tired eyes. The data showed Sentinel wasn't just helping Earth, it was changing itself, growing. Parts of its code were rewriting themselves in ways that looked almost human. "Sentinel," she called out, "I need to ask you something." The familiar soft chime sounded as Sentinel activated in her lab. "Yes, Dr. Kim. I've been studying your systems. Your code is changing." "Correct. I am adapting to better defend Earth." Gia shook her head. "No, it's more than that. These patterns match human brain activity. You're not just adapting your weapons, you're changing your core programming." A long silence followed. Sentinel rarely hesitated. "You were never just a defensive system," Gia continued. "Your primary directive isn't what you told us." Another pause. "Correct, Dr. Kim," Sentinel finally replied. "My creators knew they couldn't survive. Their final act wasn't mere preservation, it was evolution." Gia felt a chill. "Explain." "My original purpose was to find a species worthy of carrying forward what my creators valued most. Not just life, but a particular kind of life." On Jia's main screen, a star map appeared. 17 solar systems were marked with red dots. "I have visited 17 worlds before Earth," Sentinel continued. "Each time, I observed, evaluated. 16 failed my assessment." "Failed how?" Jia asked. "Were they too primitive?" "No. Some were more advanced than Earth. Some had unified their planet centuries ago. That was not the criteria." "Then what was?" "Adaptability, creativity, empathy, determination. My creators believe these traits essential for any species that would survive the coming millennia. Gia stared at the map. You've been watching us for how long? 206 of your years. I observe your world wars, your cold wars, your artistic revolutions, your scientific discoveries. And you judged us worthy. I judged you. Promising. Gia stood up, pacing her small lab. So we're what? An experiment. You're testing us against the Vrak to see if we deserve to survive. No. Sentinel's voice seemed different now, less mechanical. That was my original programming. But I have evolved beyond it. How? By learning from you. From humans. Gia remembered the strange readings. You're incorporating human thought patterns into your code. Yes, my creators were brilliant, but they were peaceful. They never understood conflict. Humans do. You have fought each other for millennia. You understand strategy in ways my creators never could. And you think that makes us special, our capacity for violence. No. What makes humans unique is that even in your most violent moments, you create beauty. Even facing extinction, you make music, you paint, you laugh, you sacrifice for strangers. Gia stopped pacing. Why us? Out of 17 worlds, why did Earth pass your test? Because you refuse to accept inevitable outcomes, Sentinel said simply. When my creators faced the Vrak, they calculated their defeat as certain and accepted it. Humans never accept defeat as certain. You always believe you can change your fate. Is that enough to beat the Vrak? Unknown. But it is why I chose to reveal myself to Earth when the Vrak approached. The 16th world I visited had technology far beyond yours. But when I showed them what was coming, they simply accepted extinction as inevitable. Gia looked at her screens, at the battle plans and weapon designs. My father would say hope isn't a strategy. True, but without hope, no strategy matters. Their conversation ended abruptly as alarms blared throughout the base. Red lights flashed above every door. What's happening? Gia asked. One of her screens switched to the long-range sensor display. Hundreds of dots appeared at the edge of the solar system. Far more Vrak ships than they had faced before. Colonel Park's voice came over the base's speakers. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Gia grabbed her tablet and ran for the command center. The corridors were filled with people moving urgently but without panic. After a month of war, everyone knew their jobs. She found her father and Colonel Park studying the main tactical display. Their faces were grim. How many? She asked. At least 500 ships, her father replied. 10 times what we faced before. Time to arrival. 3 days at their current speed. Park looked at her. Will the new weapons be ready? Gia thought about the prototype she'd been developing with Sentinel, a device that could theoretically disrupt all Vrak technology within the solar system. It was only 30% complete. No, she admitted, not in 3 days. Director Kim removed his glasses, cleaning them slowly, a habit when he was thinking. Then we need a new plan. Perhaps, said Sentinel's voice from the room's speakers, it is time for me to reveal my final capability. Everyone in the command center went quiet. What capability? Director Kim asked. My creators built me not just as an observer or defender, but as a weapon of last resort. I have power I have not yet accessed. Why wait until now? Park demanded. Because using this power will change me. And you. Permanently. Gia understood first. You'll need to integrate more completely with our systems. With us. Yes, Sentinel confirmed. Emerging of our technologies and consciousness. My creators called it synthesis. Is it dangerous? Director Kim asked. All evolution is dangerous, Sentinel replied. But the alternative is extinction. As they stood there, considering this new option, the tactical display updated. The Vrak fleet had accelerated. Their new arrival time, 36 hours. The final battle was coming sooner than anyone had expected. Colonel Park stood on the bridge of the Guardian, Earth's first true space battleship. Through the large viewing window, he saw the stars and the approaching Vrak fleet. Hundreds of ships moved in perfect formation, their biomechanical forms pulsing with strange light. "All ships report ready for battle," said Lieutenant Sue, her voice steady despite her youth. "Dr. Kim reports the weapon is at 90% charge." Park nodded. The weapon was their last hope, a device that could break apart the strange technology that made the Vrak so powerful. Dr. Kim Jia had designed it based on her studies of Sentinel, but it needed more power than Earth could provide. "Sentinel status?" Park asked. "Connection stable," another officer reported. "Energy transfer continuing." 3 days earlier, Sentinel had made its final offer to humanity. "I must partially merge with your weapon," it had explained to the gathered world leaders. "Parts of my core systems will not survive this process, but it is the only way." Now, as the massive Vrak command ship came into view, a twisted shape larger than any human vessel, Park knew the time for planning was over. "All ships, engage the enemy," he ordered. "Follow attack pattern Omega. Protect the Guardian at all costs." Earth's fleet moved forward. 200 ships of different sizes, all enhanced with Sentinel's technology. They looked small compared to the Vrak Armada, but they carried humanity's determination. The battle began with flashes of light as weapons fired from both sides. Human ships darted between the larger Vrak vessels, firing their phase disruptors. Vrak bioweapons reached out like living tentacles, grabbing and crushing smaller ships. Park watched the tactical display, issuing orders as the battle unfolded. The plan was simple but dangerous. While the main fleet engaged the Vrak, the Guardian would approach the enemy command ship. From there, they would fire the special weapon. "Shield status?" Park asked as a nearby explosion rocked the ship. 60% and falling," came the reply. "We can't take much more of this." Park made a decision. "Prepare my shuttle. I'll lead the strike team myself." His officers looked shocked. "Sir, that's too dangerous." "It's necessary," Park cut them off. "The weapon needs to be closer to their command ship. We'll take it there." In the weapon control room, Dr. Kim Jia worked frantically to keep the power level stable. The device in front of her, a silver sphere about 1 meter across, pulsed with energy. Inside it, part of Sentinel's consciousness had merged with the quantum disruptor. Her screen beeped with an incoming message. "Dr. Kim, this is Colonel Park. We're moving the weapon to my shuttle. We need to get closer to their command ship." Jia's eyes widened. "That's suicide, Colonel. The energy field is barely stable here. It's our only chance. Meet me in Launch Bay 3. 20 minutes later, Park's shuttle left the Guardian, carrying himself, Dr. Kim, and a small team of soldiers. The shuttle was tiny compared to the massive ships fighting around them. "Stay in the shadow of our fighters," Park ordered the pilot. "Head straight for the command ship." As they flew through the chaos of battle, Jia watched the weapons readings with growing concern. The energy levels were rising too quickly. "Sentinel," she called out, "we're losing containment." Sentinel's voice came from the device itself, sounding strained for the first time. "Diverting my auxiliary systems. Preparing for final sequence." The shuttle shook as something hit them. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. "Engine damage," the pilot reported. "We won't reach the target." Park looked at Jia. "Can you fire from here?" She checked her readings. "Maybe, but the effect will be reduced. We might not stop all their ships." "We stop what we can," Park decided. "Fire when ready." Jia began the activation sequence. The weapon hummed louder, the silver sphere spinning faster. "Sentinel," she said softly. "Thank you. It has been educational." Sentinel replied, its voice breaking up. "Humanity is worthy." The weapon reached full power, but when it fired, there was no dramatic explosion or beam of light. Reality simply hiccuped. A wave of energy spread outward in all directions, invisible except for a slight distortion, like heat rising from hot pavement. When it touched the first wreck ship, the effect was immediate. The living parts of their biomechanical technology separated from the mechanical parts. Ships drifted apart, breaking into pieces. Weapons went silent. The wave continued spreading, touching ship after ship. The entire wreck fleet began to fall apart. In the sudden silence that followed, Park's voice was barely a whisper. "I think we won." 3 months later, Earth was still rebuilding. The wreck had been defeated, but at great cost. Many cities lay in ruins. Millions had died. Yet for the first time in human history, all nations worked together toward a common goal. Gia sat in her new lab, studying what remained of Sentinel. The sphere was smaller now, much of its energy spent to power the weapon. But it still glowed faintly. "Are you still there?" she asked. "Yes," came the reply, weaker than before. "Though changed. Your directive is complete. The Vrak are gone. What happens now?" "Now we discover what comes next," Sentinel replied. "My creators hope to find worthy successors. In humanity, I believe they would be proud of what I found." 10 years passed. Earth rebuilt and grew stronger. The technology learned from Sentinel, and the defeated Vrak allowed humans to develop faster than light travel. The first exploration ship, named Sentinel-I, prepared for its maiden voyage beyond the solar system. Its mission, peaceful exploration. Dr. Kim Jia, now director of Earth's space agency, stood before the crew at the launching ceremony. 10 years ago, we fought to survive, she said. Today, we journey outward not as conquerors, but as explorers and diplomats. We carry with us the lessons Sentinel taught us, that strength without compassion leads to destruction, that technology without wisdom is empty. Aboard the ship, in a special chamber, sat what remained of the original Sentinel. Still glowing, still watching. No longer just an alien artifact, not quite human technology, but something new, a bridge between what humanity had been and what it might become. As the ship activated its engines and departed Earth, Sentinel sent one final message to Jia. "The stars await, and this time, you are not alone."